hey, made the best player play. And if that's Ryan Kerrigan, because none of those young guys you were referring to have been able to step up and outperform an old man, real simple, beat him out. Outwork him in practice. Prove to the coaches you should be the guys getting reps on third down. If you can't, here's a seat on the bench for you. We're going to put Kerrigan in because he's going to get to the quarterback more often than you are. WE and or AEW, Johnny Mac and Jody Mac, two pretty big wrestling fans and two all right football guys. We'll try and make it up for you for the next 2 hours. Did you watch Monday Night Raw last night, Johnny Mac?
I did not live. I had some IKEA furniture to try to put together, so I got a DVR. I got to get to it today.
Same here. I watched the first hour, and then I had to be on the air last night, so I didn't get the chance to go back and watch it yet. But I was not. What I did watch during the day on Peacock was the pay-per-view from Sunday night. I would say underwhelming. Backlash was okay at best. Wouldn't give it high grades. I'm a Roman Reigns guy, and he retained the title, so that's good by me. But overall, zombies.
Yeah,
what?
That's not good. That's not good. I mean, it's a crossover with the Netflix film coming out with Dave Bautista, so I understand it. But anytime they try to do goopy stuff like that, you go all the way back to RoboCop in the WCW days. It is awful. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But I will say, if you're a Roman Reigns fan, the main event was great, him and Cesaro. So it depends what you're looking for. But yeah, when you do something that stupid, and this is the criticism I've had with Vince McMahon, Tony Khan, to the point Tony doesn't return my messages. When you do one stupid thing, it leaves a bad taste on the entire show. And that's where I am with both of these companies. There's too much hokey, stupid stuff. Too much.
The Miz completely enveloped by zombies. Yeah, that was not good.
By the way, his show is great. Have you ever seen his show?
Oh yeah, I watch Miz's show all the time. I love his wife. She's A, very attractive, and B, funny as all get out.
Yeah, it's a good show. It's a good reality.
He makes the show more than Miz does, in my estimation.
Well, yeah, she does make the show. I agree with that.
All right. We'll, if we have to, we'll get back to wrestling. But for now, we'll jump over to football.
We got Ryan Kerrigan to talk about. That's what people tuned in for.
Talk about timing. Talk about timing being everything in life. Literally, we had just wrapped up the show yesterday.
Yeah.
And we usually shoot the breeze for 3, 4, 5 minutes after the show is over and done with. When we shut down the stream, we stay on the line. And as we're sitting here, 2 minutes after the show is over, John goes, hey, check this out. The Eagles have signed Ryan Kerrigan. I said, they couldn't do it like 20 minutes ago. They couldn't make the announcement 20 minutes ago so we could have it for the last 10 minutes of the show. No, it came out and broke as soon as the show ended yesterday. Johnny Mac, you can attest to the fact that for a month now, I've been saying, I know the Eagles need to upgrade cornerback, and everybody is concentrating on cornerback. And I get why they're concentrating on cornerback. And we'll find out if Zach McPherson is a capable starting cornerback as a 4th-round draft pick in his rookie year. But the Eagles have done very little to build their roster and or the confidence of their fan base that they're going to have enough warm bodies at cornerback. But in the meantime, in between time, you got some other holes on this football team. Positions that could use upgrading. I had mentioned that there were a couple of really solid resume-filled defensive ends that were still available. 2 that I mentioned specifically were Melvin Ingram, formerly of the Chargers, and this Ryan Kerrigan guy from down the road in Washington, who has done nothing but terrorize the Eagles for the last decade and make Lane Johnson's life that much more difficult. And I was wondering why the Eagles hadn't made moves on either of those 2 guys. Well, you never know what conversations aren't being had off the record between agents and Howie Roseman. Well, we found out one came to fruition yesterday with Kerrigan signing a 1-year deal with the Eagles. John is still working on trying to find the exact details of the contract. The best I've seen is upwards of $3.5 million. I don't know if that means that's a salary and he's got incentives that can earn him more, or the incentives are very obtainable and that will get him to 3.5 million. I know you don't care. You just want to know how many sacks he's going to get. But the money is important in a salary cap world. So we will try and continue to investigate and see exactly how that is. I like him from a production standpoint. I don't hate paying him 3.5 million. I think the Eagles can and should be able to afford that. I'm a big fan of this signing. Johnny Mac, how about you?
I think it's a complicated signing. In a lot of ways, I don't think it makes sense. If you want to boil it down to 2021, does he make him a better football team? Yes. But every indication this team has given you is this isn't only about 2021. In fact, it's more about 2022. And where the heck's Ryan Kerrigan going to be in 2022? I don't know. But on the other hand, it's one of those deals that kind of fell into their lap. I think there's no question that Ryan was, he understood at this stage of his career, he's going to be 33 in August, Jody. He understood he's going to get a 1-year deal, but I'm pretty sure he's expecting, $7-8 million, basically twice as much as he got. The market wasn't there. The Eagles just waited. He couldn't get another deal. He felt comfortable on the East Coast for obvious reasons. They swoop in at the last minute and they're able to get a very cost-effective 1-year contract for a guy who can still play. Now, he was productive. He played a career low in snaps last year, but that had more to remember where he was. That had more to do. That might be the most talented front in all of football, the Washington football team. So you have Chase Young, you have Montez Sweat. That's understandable. I've heard conflicting. He had numbers, 5.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss in, about 38% of the snaps. That's really good production. You would think he'd play a little bit more here. But here's my concern, though, Jody. He's got, as I said, by the time the season rolls around, he's going to be 33. Brandon Graham's 33. Now, you can make a strong argument. You should be trying to find the heir apparent to Brandon Graham. You should be trying to figure out Derek Barnett and Josh Sweat are both on contract years. Are they going to be long-term fixtures of this team, or are you just going to move on after the season? And then you have all the young guys, whether it's the rookies, Teron Jackson, Patrick Johnson, even guys who've been here like Joe Osman. I'm not the one who called it a transition year. Jeffrey Lurie called it a transition year. So if it's a transition year, why are you going out getting the 33-year-old edge rusher to take snaps away from people you have to either evaluate or have to count on long term? That part I don't get about. From a pure football standpoint, this guy makes you a better team. And I think you bring up an astute point. They're not able to get a cornerback. Right. Steven Nelson's out there. He's 28 years old. He's probably going to command. His agent came out last week. Now, this might be hyperbole. In fact, I think it's hyperbole. He said 17 teams are interested. That means there's a market there. We'll see ultimately what he gets. But I think he's going to get more than $3.5 million. And if you ask me who's a better football player, Ryan Kerrigan or Steven Nelson, I'm going to tell you Ryan Kerrigan 100 times out of 100.
Right.
So maybe that's your answer to fixing the quarterback position by getting to the cornerback position. Get to the quarterback. Because, Jody, if you look at this on third downs, you can kick Brandon Graham inside next to Fletcher Cox. You have Ryan Kerrigan on the outside with Derek Barnett or Josh Sweat, either one. On paper, that's pretty good.
Here's the way I look at it. You and I are close to being on the same page, but not on the exact same page. Howie Roseman needs to do a juggling act at this stage of the season. His job is to try and make the Eagles a better football team in 2021. Not at the expense of 2022 or 2023, but if you're going to go younger, the guys have to earn it. They didn't use a first round pick on an edge pass rusher or a second or a third. They just didn't. So anyone who was selected after that or signed as an undrafted free agent, to me, you've got to earn it. You've got to compete. Remember, let's not forget Nick Sirianni is all about competition. That's why I'm still very intrigued by what Kerrigan's contract actually looks like. Sure that they came to an agreement and signed off and everybody was happy. They was putting on Eagle Green. To Kerrigan's credit, put out there on social media, I probably haven't been one of your favorite players for the last decade, but I'm fired up to be a Philadelphia Eagle. So good job out of Kerrigan. Hey, made the best player play. And if that's Ryan Kerrigan, because none of those young guys you were referring to have been able to step up and outperform an old man. And you know what I mean when I say old man in football terms. Wish I were 33. But that is long in the tooth on the defensive line in the National Football League. Real simple, beat them out. Outwork them in practice. Prove to the coaches you should be the guys getting reps on third down. If you can't, here's a seat on the bench for you. We're going to put Kerrigan in because he's going to get to the quarterback more often than you are. That's what I like. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see the complete restructuring of the Philadelphia Eagles going into a season. We lived through the tanking of the 76ers. I don't want to see the tanking of the Eagles. You got to try and win games, and you're going to be packing the house again, getting all your Eagle fans back in there, filling the stadium. You don't want to see never pressuring the other team's quarterback. You want to have a fighting chance week in and week out. I think Kerrigan gives them that.
Yeah, I mean, I think bottom line, it comes down to, as I said, something that fell into their lap. You put more credence on Nick Sirianni's competition nonsense than I do. I'll be the first to say
Nonsense.
Yeah, well, Brandon Graham's not competing. Fletcher Cox isn't competing. Jason Kelsey's not competing. Lane Johnson's not competing. Unless you're talking about expectations, unless you're talking about their previous history as Pro Bowl level players, they might be competing against themselves. They might be competing against expectations from outside the building. Are they still the same player at this stage of their career? They're not competing with anybody inside the building. Devontae Smith is a first-round pick. He's not competing with anybody inside the building. Most top 10 picks in this league aren't competing with anybody. It's nonsense. I get why coaches say it, but it's coach speak. It is what it is. Where I do agree with you is he makes them a better team right now. But let's pretend, and you know, a lot of people make the Chris Long comparison. Two things why I think it's wrong. One, I love Chris Long. Ryan Kerrigan was a much better player than Chris Long.
Very true.
Even though Ryan Kerrigan was a big time pass rusher in this league for a decade. All-time leader for a team with a pretty deep history, the Washington football team, leading sack man in that entire franchise's history. You mentioned he's known as an Eagles killer, 13 and a half sacks against the Eagles. Guess what? He had 13 against the Giants. He had 13 and a half versus the Cowboys, or vice versa. He does it against everybody. It's not just the Philadelphia Eagles. Lane Johnson loves him, says he's one of the toughest guys he's got to block. All this is good. I got a lingering suspicion, though. Chris was, Ryan was better than Chris post Eagles. I don't know if Ryan is going to be better than Chris on the Eagles. And maybe that just has to do with tread on the tire. He played a lot. He did in Washington. There was one pro scout, anonymous, of course, that said he doesn't have much left. But that doesn't concern me because guys can have different opinions. What concerns me is the contract. Like, why? There are 31 other teams in this league, and they all need pass rushers. Why is he out there in mid-May? Why is he only getting $3.5 million? That's what concerns me. I don't know. It's a big name. People love big names. I don't know if it fits for the reasons I said before where this team is, and we'll see how much he has left in the tank. But the second part of that is, Jody, best case scenario, he plays well. He gets to the quarterback 10 times. Well, he's going somewhere else next year. So, I mean, maybe it gets you from 7 to 9 wins. Maybe that's good. Maybe you're in it. Maybe it helps. But I think you have bigger issues long term. And that's the difficult balancing act we talked about with Randy Mueller when he was on the show. You got to balance that. And it's hard to do.
It is. But I'll give Howie credit because I think he took a step in the right direction in one of the directions they got to go. You're right. They kind of have to balance it and split directions. If you serve one master with one move, you got to serve the other master with another move. And I think Howie has actually done okay at that this offseason. Still needs to upgrade cornerback. Given. Check. Do that, Howie. But here's where I'm going to cut Nick Sirianni a little bit more slack than apparently you are. The whole competition thing. When he says everyone, and that's the term that he used, everyone is competing. You're right. There are some guys on this team that aren't competing. Fletcher Cox isn't competing for playing time or his job. That's not happening. But rather than take him as literal as everyone, here's what I think he's saying in part, and I got to agree with him. How many guys are there that are unquestioned going to be getting their 75, 80, 90% of the snaps? On the offensive line, it's more like 100. They play every snap. But on the defense, they shuttle guys in and out, specifically the lines and like. How many guys do the Eagles really have in those positions this year? We can go through them real quickly. Offensive line, all right, there are plenty. Defensive line, Fletcher. Brandon is going to play his usual number, but he doesn't play every down. He's not like a 100% guy.
That's a rotational position everywhere. I mean,
that's what I mean.
But I mean, he's a starter. I'm talking about starters. So, like running back is a rotational position, but Miles Sanders is the starter. He's not competing against anybody. Jalen Hurts is the starter. We can go down the list. The offensive line from left to right, 4 of the 5 spots are cemented. Nobody's competing. Wide receiver, which is supposed to be one of the worst positions on the team, 2 of the 3. No competition. No competition at tight end. On the defensive line.
What percentage of snaps is Jalen Reagor going to play this year?
Well, you're talking about rotational positions, Jody. In other words, you're talking about offensive line.
Well, if you tell me 2 out of 3 are playing, then it's a rotation of 1.
Well, no, you play because of the position. You generally play 4 or 5 receivers throughout the season. You're not going to play 100% of the snaps like you are on the offensive line. There are certain positions in the NFL. Forget about the Eagles. If you go to other cities, pick a city. DeMarcus Lawrence, he doesn't play 100% of the snaps because he's a defensive lineman. Offensive linemen in Dallas, they play 100% of the snaps. Wide receivers in Dallas, they're great. They don't play 100% of the snaps. They're all awesome. It's a rotational position. So if you're going to put the standard at 100%, you can argue competition, but that's literal. Those guys are starters. Amari Cooper's entrenched. CeeDee Lamb's entrenched. Michael Gallup's entrenched. I mean, there are rotational. Right.
And that's why I'm saying the Eagle wide receiver position is one that's in competition because they're going to compete for who's going to get that percentage.
Devontae and Jalen are going to play. That's why I say it's lip service. They are going to be 2 of the top. You can put it in pen. Barring injury, they're going to be 2 of the top 3 receivers on this team. Simple. Period. End of sentence. There is no competition.
Okay. Well, I hope that other guys at the wide receiver put pressure on them. I think Devontae's going to play upwards of 85% of the snaps, but Jalen Reagor's got a little something to prove, at least for me this year. All right, so you got some good McMullen-McDonald generated opinion to get it going. Let's add to it. We've got a good guest scheduled to join us. Eagle fans, you know him. He's on WIP as part of the Eagles pregame show. Does games for Westwood One. Contributor on Odyssey's NFL Insider stuff. Ross Tucker, former NFL lineman, is going to join us next, right here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.